Hello, I'm Sue McMahon and I'm going to show you how to simply temper chocolate and how to make Easter eggs. Now Easter eggs are two halves of chocolate eggs put together. The technique is the same for any other shapes too, so it's the same for making bunnies, or at other times of the year you can make Santas or Christmas trees. The important thing is to temper chocolate properly. If you just melt chocolate and use it, you might be lucky. But chocolate can set in lots of different ways, and if it's not tempered, sometimes it sets that it's soft, it has streaks in it, and it's not shiny. But tempering chocolate means that it will set with a nice snap to it, it will be shiny, and it will release easily from the moulds. So that the chocolate comes out of the mould really easily and has a nice firm crisp texture, the chocolate needs to be tempered. So to do this, I'm going to use the seeding method. So in the bowl here, I've got 200 grams of Carabao chocolate drops, and I'm going to put it in the microwave for 1 minute. I'm using chocolate drops because it's easiest to melt, but you can use any good quality block chocolate, but you need to chop it into small pieces first of all. And the seeding method means you melt some of it and then you add to it some more chocolate. So I'm actually going to use 300 grams of chocolate altogether. So I'm melting 2/3 of it, which is why I've got 200 grams. And then when that's melted, I'm going to add another 100 grams to it. So that hasn't made very much difference, but I'll just give it a stir. And I'm going to put it on for another minute. The times all vary depending on how powerful your microwave oven is. The important thing is not to leave it in there too long or it will burn. It burns very easily because it has a high sugar content. And give it another stir. So it's now starting to melt. So now I'll give it shorter bursts. With this particular microwave, the quickest setting is just to put it on for a minute at a time. Some microwaves you can put on for 10-second bursts. So I've put this one on for a minute, but I'm going to stir it quite regularly. So with this initial melting, I want to make sure that the chocolate is completely melted. If you've got a chocolate thermometer, you can make sure that it's above 40 degrees. But a chocolate thermometer isn't essential. It does help to just make sure it's an extra sort of test to make sure that the chocolate's in the right sort of temperature range. But when you can see that the chocolate is nice and fluid and that there aren't any of the drops left in it, then you know that it's probably reached the right temperature. Okay, so now I'm going to add the other 100 grams of chocolate to it. And then I need to stir this so that the chocolate melts. So this can take quite a while to do. When you stir it, try and keep the spoon in the chocolate mixture. Don't keep lifting it up and letting it sort of drizzle off the spoon, because if you do that, you get air mixed with it, and that will cause the chocolate to thicken. So it's just a gentle stirring. You can actually add those that came out. I'll leave that just a couple of minutes without stirring it, just so the heat starts to melt the chocolate. So I'm just going to stir the last few bits that haven't melted. And the chocolate should be at the right temperature now. If you have a thermometer, the working temperature for milk chocolate is normally somewhere between 28 and 30 degrees Celsius. If it's dark chocolate you're using, then it's normally between 30 and 32. Okay, I can't see any of the chocolate drops in there now. So what I do is I dip the tip of a knife in, just to give a very thin layer of chocolate. And then I can wait a couple of minutes and see if that starts to set. If it sets with a nice even sheen, then I know the chocolate is tempered. So I'm actually pretty confident this is tempered. So I'm just going to leave that to one side, and I'm going to show you how to fill a chocolate mould. Now the chocolate moulds need to be dry and they need to be polished to make sure they're really shiny. When you turn chocolate out of a mould, it will have the surface of whatever it's been poured into. So if your mould is dirty or has any scratches on it, they'll all show up when you tip the chocolate out. So you need to make sure you keep your moulds in good condition and don't let them get scratched. And I normally polish them with a piece of kitchen paper or an old cotton t-shirt. A piece of clean, nice, soft cotton is really good for polishing them, just to make sure that they're really shiny before I use them. So I'm going to spoon some chocolate into this. And then I'm going to tap it on the work surface. And you can see some bubbles starting to rise to the surface. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the mould, taking it right up to the edge. If you tap the mould, it vibrates it and it helps the chocolate to move around. You can actually see there were a couple of drops that weren't totally melted. What I'm going to do is clean off the top of the mould with a palette knife. And then I'm going to leave the mould upside down to set. And then when it's set, I can put another layer of chocolate in, just to build up the thickness of the sides so that it's not too thin. And when it's completely done with 2 to 3 layers of chocolate, I put it in the fridge for about 5 or 10 minutes, just to make sure it's really firm, and then take it out to take out of the mould. The important thing is not to leave it in the fridge too long. If you have it in the fridge too long, when you turn the chocolate out, you'll get condensation forming on the surface of it. So only put it in the fridge for 5 or 10 minutes. And if you want a base to stand the eggs up on, an easy thing to do is to make a base by putting some chocolate into a cupcake case. So just spoon in some of the chocolate. This adds a nice firm weight to the base of the egg to help keep it standing. And then I tap it, and that will get rid of any air bubbles, and I leave that to set as well. And I can see that the chocolate on the knife there, it has set and it's got a nice smooth colour to it. When chocolate isn't tempered, you see streaks in it, often white or grey streaks. And if that happens, you need to do the process again. So what I would do is I would heat this up again to make sure it's above about 40 degrees, and then add some more of the chocolate. This chocolate as it comes is tempered, so that's why it will work as a seed when you add it to the melted chocolate. And you can do the process any number of times. So to turn the eggs out, I'm going to tip them upside down, and because I put them in the fridge, they should be nice and firm and they should come out. And then I've got a tray here that I heated up in a hot oven, so I'm just melting the eggs and then I'm going to stick them together. And I'm wearing gloves while I do this to try to make sure that I don't get any fingerprints on the egg. So I let the egg cool while I then decorate another one that I made already. So once it's set, you can decorate around the edge with royal icing. So try to handle it as little as possible, and when you are handling it, hold it right on the edge, because that won't be seen as much as if you touch it right in the centre of it. So I'm using a writing tube. This is a number 3. And I'm piping a snail's trail over the join to disguise it. If you want to, when you're sticking it together, you can actually put some little eggs inside it so that it's not just a hollow egg. If you don't want to make up royal icing, you can use ready-made icing, or you can use the royal icing sugar that just needs whisking up with water added to it. And I actually find the royal icing sugar is quite good if I only need a small amount of icing, as I do for these eggs. And it's easier to make up a small quantity than it is using fresh egg white. So I've piped all the way around it. And now I'm going to pipe a name onto it. So you can pipe Happy Easter or a name. And then you can either use daffodils to stick on it, which are in one of our other lessons on how to do a daffodil cake, or these bought decorations, which are really easy to use because they're just all ready to stick on, just with a little bit of royal icing onto the back of them. If you wanted to, you could use some green royal icing to pipe some leaves to go with these. So I put some daffodils on, and there's a little hen in a nest. And I rather like the bright green nest as well. So I'm then going to leave that for the royal icing to dry before I put it in any packaging. So once the icing's set on them, the last thing to do is to package them, because you want to package them in such a way people don't need to touch them, because that will ruin the surface of them. So the easiest way is if you put them in a little basket with some tissue paper around it to protect them, or some shredded tissue looks pretty too. Or you can put them in cellophane bags. This is the rabbit we've done up with some ribbon on the top. Or you could make bases for them, as we showed you in the cupcake cases, and then use some tempered chocolate to stick the eggs upright on them. So I hope that we've given you some good ideas, and I hope that you enjoy making Easter eggs this year.